Garrett had mediated ceasefires under collapsing suns and negotiated water rights on moons where the oceans actively tried to eat the diplomats, so the Vireth throne room should not have unsettled him. And yet it did, in a quiet, humming way, like a machine that knew your name. The floor was grown, not built, translucent layers of crystal-veined stone pulsing faintly beneath his boots. Every step echoed twice, once in the air, once in his bones. Queen Ishara waited at the far end, seated on a living dais that adjusted its shape to her posture, as if the palace itself was trying to be polite. She looked human at a distance, which Garrett had learned was the most dangerous kind of alien resemblance. Up close the illusion broke gently. Her ears were long and tapered, elegant arcs that framed a face carved by authority and restraint. Her eyes held the patient exhaustion of someone who had ruled too long to believe in surprises. To her left stood Princess Ayla, to her right, Princess Senna, twins, officially. Functionally, they were opposites sharing the same reflection. Both had the elongated ears of their kind, smooth and expressive, twitching in subtle ways Garrett suspected were whole sentences he wasn't equipped to hear. Ayla stood perfectly still, hands folded, posture so precise it felt like a thesis on dignity. Senna leaned slightly, weight on one hip, curiosity practically vibrating off her. Garrett cleared his throat. The translator node behind his ear hummed, helpfully silent. "Your Majesty," he said, offering the careful half-bow he'd practiced on the shuttle. "I'm honored to assist with the trade corridor dispute." "Assistance," Ishara said, voice calm and resonant, "is rarely what changes history. But we will begin there." That was not comforting, but Garrett smiled anyway. Smiling had ended more wars than weapons. "I find beginning is usually the hardest part. After that, things only get unexpectedly worse." Senna snorted. Ayla did not, though the corner of her mouth betrayed her. The court murmured, a soft ripple of interest passing through the assembled nobles, advisors, and military figures arranged in curved tiers around the hall. Garrett sensed calculations starting already. He was being measured, not for competence but for fit. The first hour passed as expected. Supply routes, resource allocation, a disputed asteroid belt that apparently held religious significance, mineral wealth, and a very aggressive species of semi-sentient moss. Garrett asked questions. He listened. He summarized positions so accurately that the arguing parties began to glare at him instead of each other. Progress. Throughout it all, the twins watched him, not rudely, not even obviously, but consistently, like astronomers tracking a comet they'd already named. When the formal audience concluded, Ishara inclined her head. "We will adjourn. There are additional matters." Garrett nodded. "Of course. I'll be in my assigned quarters, revising proposals and trying not to offend any sacred moss." "Too late," Senna said pleasantly. "It's already offended." Ayla shot her a look. "It prefers the term existentially challenged." Garrett laughed before he could stop himself. It echoed louder than intended. The court dispersed. Guards shifted. Advisors whispered. Garrett was just turning to follow his escort when Senna spoke again, her tone light, almost conversational. "We would like to invoke the bonding statute." Silence fell so fast it felt engineered. Garrett stopped walking, slowly turned. "I'm sorry," he said. "The what statute?" Ayla stepped forward, serene as a star chart. "The ancient royal consort claim." Senna joined her, matching the movement perfectly. "We choose you." Garrett blinked. Once. Twice. He checked the translator node with his fingers. "Is my implant malfunctioning, or did you both just—" "We did," Ayla said. "At the same time," Senna added, pleased. The room erupted, though quietly. Gasps, sharp intakes of breath, the unmistakable sound of several political careers ending on the spot. Queen Ishara did not move. Garrett opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again. "I'm flattered," he said weakly, because his brain had apparently surrendered to politeness. "But I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'm here to mediate trade disputes, not dynastic bonding rituals. There is no misunderstanding, Ayla said. We have studied your work. Senna nodded. Extensively. You're very bad at giving orders. That's a feature, Garrett said. People hate orders. Exactly, Senna replied. You listen until they solve their own problems. It's infuriating and effective. Ayla's gaze was steady, thoughtful. Vareth stands at an impasse. Our philosophies diverge. Alone, either of us would fracture the throne. Together, we require a stabilizing constant. Garrett laughed again, louder this time, nerves cracking through. I'm a person, not a math problem. Humans often say that, Senna said. You're wrong. The queen finally rose. The living dais adjusted, but she did not notice. Her eyes were on her daughters, wide with something Garrett had never seen on a ruler before. Shock. You cannot, Ishara said, and the word trembled. There has never been twins who agreed, Ayla said gently. Never been a consort shared, Ishara said. It violates succession law. Senna tilted her head. Only because no one tried to write better laws. Garrett raised a hand instinctively. If I could just pause this conversation before it becomes a civil war, I'd appreciate it. No one looked at him. The air in the chamber felt charged now, like a storm deciding where to land. Garrett realized, with a sinking feeling, that he had just stopped being an observer. Queen Ishara closed her eyes. When she opened them again, the palace lights dimmed imperceptibly, responding to her state. This council is suspended, she said. Guards, escort mediator Garrett to secure quarters. No one speaks of this. Senna smiled at him as he was gently but firmly guided away. Don't worry, she called. We're very patient. Ayla inclined her head. And very serious. Garrett managed a wave. That's what everyone says right before my life gets complicated. The doors closed behind him with a sound like a decision being made. Garrett's quarters were too comfortable to be reassuring. The walls adjusted temperature based on his skin chemistry, the lighting softened when his pulse spiked, and the bed politely waited until it was absolutely sure he was exhausted. It was the sort of room designed by a civilization that believed stress was a solvable design flaw. Unfortunately, stress disagreed. Garrett paced. The room subtly widened to accommodate the movement. He stopped. The room stopped. That felt personal. Okay, he said aloud, because silence had begun to feel accusatory. Let's recap. I came here to argue about shipping lanes. Instead, I've been proposed to. Twice, simultaneously, by twins, royal twins, who bond for life. The translator node remained silent. He eyed it suspiciously anyway. A soft chime sounded. Not an alarm, a polite request. Yes, Garrett said, instantly regretting it. The wall dissolved into transparency, revealing Queen Ishara standing beyond a thin energy membrane. She looked smaller than before. Not physically, but as if the weight she carried had shifted in a way gravity hadn't anticipated. May I enter? She asked. Unless that violates another ancient law, Garrett said. In which case, absolutely not. A flicker of something almost like amusement crossed her face. The membrane faded. She stepped inside, her long ears held low, a posture Garrett instinctively recognized as defensive. You were not supposed to be involved, she said. That's been the theme of my career, Garrett replied. Every major disaster I've prevented started with me being in the wrong room. Ishara studied him. You are. Not what I expected. Join the club. They don't give out jackets, but there's a lot of nodding. She exhaled slowly. My daughters do nothing impulsively. That is what terrifies me. Garrett leaned against the wall. It reshaped itself into a chair. He ignored it out of spite. With respect, Your Majesty, your daughters just detonated your entire political system using me as the ignition switch. That feels at least a little impulsive. They have been studying you for 6 cycles, Ishara said. Garrett froze. I'm sorry. What? They analyzed your mediation records. Your neural response patterns. Your conflict resolution heuristics. She hesitated. Your jokes. He grimaced. Those were never meant to be peer-reviewed. They believe, Ishara continued, that you represent a form of balance our species lacks. You do not dominate conflict. You exhaust it. Garrett rubbed his face. That might be the nicest description anyone's ever given me, and I still want to opt out. Before Ishara could respond, another chime sounded, this one less polite. The air shimmered, and Princess Senna appeared first, as if reality had simply decided she belonged there. Ayla followed a heartbeat later, precise as punctuation. You told them not to speak of it, Senna said cheerfully. You did not say they couldn't think loudly. Ayla inclined her head to Garrett. You are distressed. I am having what my species calls a life spiral, Garrett said. It's like a midlife crisis, but faster. Senna brightened. Excellent. That means you're processing. Ishara turned sharply. You should not be here. We should, Ayla said. This concerns him. Everything concerns him now, Senna added. That's kind of the point. Garrett raised both hands. Okay, ground rules. I'm just a person. I don't understand your laws, your biology, or why your palace keeps trying to sit me down. The wall formed a chair again, stubbornly. Ayla spoke gently. We are not claiming you as an object. We are inviting you as a participant. In a lifelong neural bond, Garrett said. Shared, between twins, which might cause a civil war. Senna shrugged. Only a medium one. Ishara's voice hardened. You do not joke about this. I joke about everything, Senna replied. It's how I avoid screaming. Silence followed that, heavier than before. Garrett looked at the Queen. What happens if I say no? Ishara hesitated. That was answer enough. Ayla's ears lowered slightly. We would accept your refusal. Senna nodded. Eventually, Garrett sighed. And if I say yes? Ishara closed her eyes. Then, the Queen said, Virith becomes something it has never been, or it tears itself apart trying to remain what it was. Garrett laughed softly, humor worn thin but still present. No pressure. He looked at the twins, one calm as structure, the other alive with disruption, and realized with a quiet, unsettling clarity that they truly believed this. Not as romance, not as conquest, as a solution. Well, he said, straightening, I suppose if the universe insists on turning me into a constitutional crisis, I should at least ask for a briefing. Senna grinned. Ayla smiled. Ishara did not. Outside the room the palace hummed, already adjusting to a future it did not yet understand. The city did not riot the way Garrett expected. There were no fires, no screaming crowds, no collapsing statues. Instead, Virith did something far worse. It argued. Every public forum filled within hours. Scholars cited succession law from 600 cycles ago. Merchants complained about market instability while quietly calculating new opportunities. Priests debated whether the bonding statute was sacred or merely old. Someone projected a giant probability tree over the central plaza, and when the numbers began fluctuating wildly, people cheered as if it were a sport. Garrett watched it all from a balcony that overlooked the Capitol, flanked by two women who were, according to half the planet, either visionaries or the beginning of the end. I've stopped being nervous, he said. That's usually when things get really bad. Senna leaned on the railing beside him. You've crossed into acceptance, or shock. They're cousins. Ayla stood straighter, hands folded behind her back. Your heart rate suggests cautious resolve. Great, Garrett muttered. I've weaponized my coping mechanisms. Behind them, the doors opened. Queen Ishara entered without ceremony, without guards, without the weight of spectacle she usually carried like armor. She looked tired, truly tired, the kind of tired that no throne could fix. It is done, she said. Garrett turned. Done as in everyone calmed down, or done as in we need to evacuate? Ishara almost smiled. Almost. I have invoked the sovereign suspension clause. Senna blinked. You never use that. I never needed to, Ishara replied, until my daughters decided to rewrite history using a human mediator. Garrett raised a finger. In my defense, I tried to stay out of it. And failed admirably, Ishara said. She looked at the twins. The throne will not pass to one of you alone. Ayla's breath caught. Senna straightened. It will pass to both, the queen continued. Joint rule, conditional, reviewed every cycle, with a consort not as ruler, but as moderator. Garrett stared. I'm sorry. Did you just turn the monarchy into a committee? Yes, Ishara said calmly. And before you object, know this. The alternative was war. Tradition has preserved us, but it has also trapped us. You did not create this fracture. You revealed it. Ayla stepped forward. Mother, I am still your queen, Ishara said gently, but I am also your mother, and I am done choosing stability over truth. Senna laughed softly, a sound edged with relief. You always did hate inefficient systems. Garrett exhaled, slowly, deeply. Something inside him unclenched. So, no civil war? There will be protests, Ishara said. There will be resistance. There will be a great many opinion pieces. Truly the darkest timeline, Garrett said. Ayla turned to him. You are not obligated to remain. I know, he said, and realized he meant it. He looked out over the city again, over a civilization mid-argument, mid-transformation, over two women who had not chosen him out of desire alone, but out of belief. I spent my life avoiding permanence, he said quietly, solving problems, then leaving before I became one. Senna tilted her head. And now? And now, Garrett said, smiling, I'm apparently part of the infrastructure. The bonding ceremony was not what he expected. There was no altar, no chanting, no dramatic beams of light. Just a quiet chamber, neural interfaces grown from living crystal, and 3 chairs that stubbornly refused to let anyone sit improperly. This will feel strange, Ayla warned. Senna grinned. Understatement of the cycle. Garrett sat anyway. The connection bloomed not as a rush, but as clarity. He did not lose himself. He expanded. He felt Ayla's precision, her patience, her endless calculations. He felt Senna's curiosity, her humor, her instinct for disruption. And between them, a space opened where balance was not compromise, but synthesis. When it ended, Garrett laughed helplessly. Okay, I get it now. Senna smirked. Told you. Ayla squeezed his hand. You are no longer alone. Weeks later, Garrett found himself mediating again, this time between his consorts, over a budget dispute involving orbital agriculture and experimental art funding. This is not what I meant by growth, he said, as they both talked at once. They stopped, looked at each other, then laughed. Outside, Vireth stabilized, slowly, uneasily, but honestly. Garrett watched the stars from the palace balcony one evening, feeling the quiet hum of connection that no longer frightened him. For the first time in his life, he wasn't resolving a conflict to escape it. He was staying, and somehow that made all the difference.